Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this next Xactly webinar focused on unlocking growth, the power of integrated sales planning and incentive compensation. And I am super excited to be here today with a great guest, Todd LeBaron. Thank you so much for joining us. If you don't know Todd, Todd brings a wealth of experience at the crossroads of strategy, technology, and sales performance management, specifically around kind of building, breaking, reinvesting, and how companies drive revenue. So really excited for Todd to be here and to pick his brain on something that I think is critically important to the success of go-to-market organizations, the connectivity between sales planning and incentive compensation. So Todd, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, great. Glad to be here, Will. Excited to talk sales performance management and specifically sales planning and how it's applied and optimized and the like. So really great topic.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, so I'm still seeing a few people just kind of trickling in here. Thank you so much for joining us. If you do have questions throughout the session, please feel free to use the chat and Q&A functions. We'll be checking it periodically. If we don't get to your questions during the webinar, we do get a readout following the webinar. So Todd or myself will be following up with you directly and answer any of those questions that you might have. So thanks again for joining us. Todd, let's go ahead and jump in, and maybe I'll start with a little bit of a softball here. I'm wearing my Xactly orange here. I kind of looks like maybe you're wearing Blue Horizons blue here, which are of course Bronco colors in my book. NFL season's right around the corner. I'm a huge Broncos fan. What are your thoughts? Do we think the Broncos are gonna break the 10-year drought from AFC West championships? What do you think?
Ah, perfect. As a 30-year Bronco fan and a season ticket holder, this is great softball. So I'm excited. We've got a quarterback, we've got a young set of receivers and running backs. Super excited. I'm feeling like last year. I think we're going to come in plus or minus one game with the 10 wins. I think we're going to take it to the Raiders, and Tom Brady's going to regret taking that ownership stake. And I honestly think we'll finish 1-2 in the division, right? I'm not sure if we're right there with KC, but we're really close. So we'll see. It's going to be a good year.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I mean, I'm excited for this year. I think, with the NFL season right around the corner, fall is almost here. Really excited about it. That also means planning season is also around the corner.
Correct.
Raiders fans, apologies in advance if the Broncos do take it to the Raiders this year, but
I'm not sorry. I'm just saying.
but yes, with NFL season around the corner, that means sales planning season is right around the corner as well. So I'm really excited to be talking to you about this. So let's jump into maybe some sales planning questions. And I think it'd be helpful, with your experience, maybe just giving us a bit of a primer on, your perspective on sales performance management and the critical role that sales planning and incentive compensation plays within SPM.
Right. SPM Guru touched all aspects of it. What is SPM? Again, different genres of sales. You got this, sales enablement folks. You got the sales effectiveness folks. We play in sales performance management. It's all about driving behavior through incentive plans, right? Getting the reps to sell what you want them to sell. SPM specifically, 3 tiers. Sales planning, how do you create all the pieces that you're going with this? The job roles and mixes, the mechanics of the plan, the territories and coverage, the quotas and forecasting models. Then you've got the incentive compensation piece, like Xactly incent, right? How do you administer the plans? How do you operate on it? How you pay the people? And then it's all the analytics and the AI and other cool stuff on the insight side. So once you've got all that great data, how do you act on it? How do you get it back upstream? How do you drive the business with what you're doing through a proper SPM framework and approach to how you drive sales behavior?
Awesome. So that's super helpful. Thank you for that primer. Now let's kind of get into the
Mhm.
meat of the topic here today. So, when you're engaging with your customers and clients, what are some of the challenges that you see them experiencing when they kind of come to you and you begin to work with them on their sales planning and incentive compensation processes?
Right. And sales planning, again, the broader basis, it's the connected planning story. It's not just the sales planning because data is coming from all across the enterprise. So it's the financial planning, it's the workforce planning. Then you get into sales planning and the aspects I talked about before of all the different pieces of sales planning. How do you align that all up so you can meet the corporate strategy, the sales strategy, on into all the sales planning pieces I'd mentioned? How do you drive that behavior, pay the people correctly, get all the results, and act on it? That's a properly aligned SPM framework for driving enterprise growth through your sales, and your front-end sales reps. The fallback is the disconnected side of that, right? What happens if it's not aligned? What are we talking about there? All those different things I mentioned, a lot of times in a big enterprise, they're siloed, right? Individual fiefdoms doing their own thing, In my mind, it's you're running a relay race without a baton. Everyone's just running in circles, right? And they're not handing off. You get misalignment there, then with the siloed processes I mentioned, they're all error prone, time consuming. You're dealing with that. You get into the quota side of the house, inequitable quotas, reps start shadow accounting, the inflexibility, you can't react to seasonality, regionality, all the different things you're dealing with. The sales planning cycle goes from being hopefully just a couple of months, now all of a sudden it's 6 months. You're trying to react to whatever went wrong. Bad forecast, dispute resolution goes up. You start hitting attrition rates, you're missing your numbers. And we all know what happens. You start missing your numbers. The leadership starts reacting to, we got to make changes, even though maybe it wasn't the comp plans, it was something else. There's a lot going on there between the act of aligning proper sales planning and not having alignment within sales planning.
Awesome. Ton of stuff there. Lot to unpack. One thing I wanted to maybe double click on there is, as you mentioned, there's a bunch of things happening. There's a lot of different data points that are critical to the process. And so what I kind of naturally think about is there needs to be a single source of truth. So there needs to be a kind of singular location for these different teams to come in and collaborate together. Is
Mm-hmm.
that kind of something that you're seeing? Is that kind of where maybe there's a bit of a gap today with a lot of businesses?
Yeah, completely. Again, as an implementer, implementing these solutions and the broader framework and the strategic capabilities, single source of truth is great. Now, I like to call it an SPM data hub if you want to get technical. I'd love that everyone had that. They all don't. So then how do you at least get them aligned somewhere so it's all sitting out there? It boils down to if it's all in one place and everyone's playing from the same playbook, they're operating on the same data, you don't have the reps choosing the wrong accounts or selling against the wrong accounts, not believing their territories. Reps are burning through their quotas and they think they're not achievable. Finance and sales. I mean, they're just reconciling everything, right? It just stuff isn't in sync. And the poor comp admins, reactionary analysis instead of being proactive, which they want to be. Disputes go up, and they're just they're regretting their life choices and what role they took because they're just dealing with all the crap that flows into the comp system. And they're dealing with exceptions and overrides. So I mean, it's an ongoing battle of if you can't believe the data, if you don't have this single source of truth for all that, they're all going to be disparate. And at the end of the year, you're going to have a bad sales cycle. And again, once again, like I said before, you're going to be dealing with attrition and bad motivation and all that goes into with the sales reps.
Yeah, awesome. So that's actually another great segue. So when I kind of as a former seller think about when I received my
Yep.
territory, my quotas, I wanted there to be a level of alignment. I wanted to feel like there are ways for me to actually hit that number, make sure that
Yep.
I could actually get to that number. And so I think maybe it's something that's not always kind of at the forefront of this is the actual motivation that you're providing to your sales reps within this
Yeah.
process, right? Like there is a critical point of that to go to market success is the motivation of the sales reps. And so keen to know kind of your perspective on maybe if without that connectivity, without that alignment, that actually could impact the motivation of many amongst your sales organization. But keen to know your perspective there as well.
Oh, sure. And it's two key points there. It's the go-to-market effectiveness. What are you trying to drive and how's it effective? And the big question is to be all capital letters trust, right? It's going to boil down to trust. And then we're talking about the reps here. Let's talk about reps. These are the coin operated trust warriors, right? They're fighting in a pay performance world. They're guided by a carrot and stick mentality, a risk reward. Take that hill, choose your analogy, right? I mean, let's talk about sales kickoff, right? You got all the sales bros in there, rah, rah, we're going to go do this, drive throughout the year. They get to the end of the year. If it wasn't aligned, again, we're back to attrition and demotivation and all that. Perfect point 20 years ago, Chris Gerbera, Xactly sales kickoff, gets in front of everybody, just fantastic moment, looks at the crowd and goes, this year I'm going to make one of you guys $1 million. Fantastic. You don't say that if you don't believe in the corporate direction, the sales strategy direction, and alignment across the board, right? Because you know what happens if you say that and it doesn't happen at the end of the year. Think about that, right? You get them focused, you get them motivated, you drive the right behavior. Leadership starts, saying what they're going to say. The reps see that they're following up what they're saying, right? Then their paycheck shows they're getting paid against what they were saying. What happens now? They're focused on the right accounts. They're following the correct sales motions, which is massive. They're selling the right products at the right time. And again, if you have a large product mix, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, it still applies. They stop gaming the plan. They stop shadow accounting. They're executing the playbook. That's the go-to-market effectiveness. You're doing that. Everyone's in sync. outside of other parameters, regional, seasonality, COVID, outside of things like that, you should be humming along and happy. And whether you're an A rep, a B rep, or a C rep, you're all on the same page. That's what we're trying to accomplish there.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome. So what a powerful message, right? I
Yeah.
think just to kind of echo what you said, and great that it's an Xactly example with
Yeah.
our founder and former CEO Chris Cabrera, being able to go on stage with that much conviction and that much confidence in the work that you've done, in the process that you've undergone to make a claim and make a statement like that is
Hmm.
awesome. That's really great to hear. So kind of piggybacking on that, we've kind of talked about some of the challenges that we see today, some of the impacts of those challenges. Maybe you can take a couple minutes and maybe give us a little bit of an example of maybe some customers or one customer that you're
Yeah.
working with today to create that more kind of collaborative, connective sales planning incentive comp process. And what are some of
Hmm.
the benefits that they're seeing today?
Yeah. So if you've got the alignment, you've got the integration, you got the single source of truth or close enough to it, everyone starts seeing the same numbers, everyone has the same assumptions, and you start getting the same outcomes or the expected outcomes that you've been forecasting, right? So now you're talking about faster rollouts, spiff, comp plan, choose your component you're talking about, clear access to quotas, understanding of quotas, belief in the quotas, fewer disputes, which just takes over a lot of comp teams, right? And sales planning and comp teams. A lot of clients I'm seeing when they start doing this, and I guess this gets us to the maturity curve that I'll mention later, but you get up to a certain point in the maturity curve where you're doing this, right? One client recently, they reduced their disputes by up to 65%. Now, it wasn't all with single source of truth. There were some other things they fixed, process improvement, things like that. But if you can get that down to that kind of number, I mean, disputes are massive. And it's not just the tactile act of fixing the disputes, it's the weight on the reps. Again, it's back to that trust question. If they're doing disputes, they're not trusting the system. Once they don't trust the system, all bets are off if they're throwing the go-to-market plan out the window, like I just mentioned. Other ones are just shortening the planning cycle. I'd love to say that typical planning, we start thinking about it in September, we roll it out in December, we do the sales kickoff in January, fat, dumb, and happy, we're off to the races. We all know the reality. That's not always the case. Big companies, if they have more people operating, hopefully they can get around it. Smaller companies, maybe not. But if you can reduce that planning cycle, I've had several accounts the last few years have been able to reduce it by 25 to 35%, which may not seem like a lot, but when you've only got a couple of months to do that, that's a big number, right? And the quicker you can get that out there and you're past the planning aspect of that planning cycle, then you get into the operational mode of, okay, let's go execute again. So when you get the integration down, you stop fighting, you stop the infighting. When you're not fighting, you're focused on how to win and how to grow your market. And that's what we're really trying to do at the end of the day.
Awesome. Yeah. So maybe just to play back a couple things, I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was great. So naturally, kind of the reduction in disputes reduces a lot of the burden on the folks
Mm-hmm.
that kind of operate within the execution portion of the process, faster planning time or faster planning cycles with the trust and alignment across the different
Right.
organizations. Helps you get them out quickly in order to make sure you're staying on time. There's less confusion. You're getting your plans and your quotas and your territories
Yeah.
faster, which again just builds that inherent trust within the sales rep, right? So making sure that you have your territories and quotas in a timely manner, super important. And so, appreciate you kind of highlighted those things. Those are awesome takeaways. So so naturally, we've talked a lot about kind of the individual processes, single
Mm-hmm.
source of truth, a lot of data. That naturally is going to take us to our favorite buzzword and something I know you're keenly focused on, and that's artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So would we really, really appreciate your perspective on, what role does AI play in this sales planning connected to an incentive compensation process and maybe, some examples that you're seeing already today?
Sure. And again, this is my bread and butter. I love this topic and I could go on for hours. This is where I start using the term intelligent SPM, right? So it's SPM plus AI. And I'm not talking just the fact that you've got something in the back office you're typing a couple letters with, right? It's truly using AI on these point solutions within all the capabilities of SPM, right? Whether it's helping with the pay mixes, with the measures and weights, the territories and quotas, however you want to do it, right? It's tying it to all the things you're doing on a regular basis. In my mind, what AI does right now, and a lot of, comp teams and the sales planning teams deal with is, I mentioned before, they go into reaction mode versus proactive. Well, you want to get proactive because you really want, in my mind, I want there to be an SPM center of excellence in every every enterprise, right? Every company, you want to be thinking that these are folks that know all your data, know what's going on, and they can drive value back upstream by analyzing the data that's coming out of it. Well, you can't get to a center of excellence if you're just being burdened down by disputes and everything else. That's where AI comes in, right? Now you're doing things where it can very quickly do scenario modeling, whether that's pay curves, pay mixes, whether it's forecasting. Choose your reason why you want to do fast modeling. I mean, AIs are built to do analytics, right? Do it fastly, and they're not biased, and you just kick it out there and you run it with them. Risk detection, right? Loopholes in the data, bad data. Choose your reason why you want to get it out in front, right? Clean data is the death knell of comp, right? And the quicker we can get it clean, the better we're going to be, from credit allocation on through to how do we handle payments, right? General ledger. There's all kinds of things you can apply that to. Coaching signals, right? That's the big one that I'm really excited about. I think it's going to change the way we do comp plans. I'll talk about a little later on the next one. Coaching signals, both coming from the fact that they're using a cell phone with AI attached to that. You start seeing how they're actually selling. And then the signals backstream that you're seeing as the data comes through, as the AI could passively look at what you're seeing with the credit allocation, with the territories, with the quotas on into the live data. Is the live data and the way you're selling matching to what you expected when you modeled at the beginning of the year, against the sales plan, against the sales strategy, against the corporate strategy, right? It's going to see things us humans just aren't going to see, right? It's going to start picking up little tidbits. And that drives some exciting things. If you tie all these together, I see in the future, and we'll talk about this at the end, dynamic comp plans. Why are we writing one-size-fit-all comp plans when an AI can react to those comp plans during the year? Right now we go, we're going to run out of spiff because we want to promote some certain item, right? AI can do a lot more than that, right? It can actually see if you're a hunter, if you're a farmer, how you're acting with certain clients, your sales motions. Why don't we make some comp plans that are dynamic against how they're selling now and help them drive home some success with those? Those are some exciting things that I've been talking to clients about. I've done some demos with lately, walking through with real life data how the sales motions would have changed if we had that in place. And man, I'm excited. I mean, we're talking not just optimizing. Typically when we talk optimization and sales planning, it's territory optimization, quote optimization, maybe coverage. You get into some segmentation issues. Now we're talking about optimizing every single step of the process with either a full AI or a micro AI sitting in the background, looking at your data passively and or actively, and just humming along and doing things for you. I'm so excited about where we're at in the space right now.
Awesome. So ton of stuff to unpack there.
Keep going, yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you could probably go on for hours on
Yeah.
this, which is awesome. It's
Yep.
great for me to learn as well. So maybe there's two things I'll just double click on real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the kind of coaching signals and things like that. So I
Yeah.
think be keen to know a little bit more about some of the practical applications. So like you mentioned coaching signals, you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
the optimization. So maybe there's a couple practical examples of the deployment of AI or the utilization of AI today that maybe you could expand upon a little bit. Maybe coaching,
Sure.
maybe the optimization of territories, if those are a couple that come
Yeah,
up.
we can hit several. A lot of them. Again, the signals one, that's typically not SPM. That's more sitting upstream from there. But because we're
Right.
dealing with the data, that's an area I tend to be playing in. The signals piece I think is really exciting because we're playing with some ideas where you put a micro AI on the cell phone to really gets to know the rep, right? If you think about social media, what are they doing right now? They're tracking everything you do and they're sending stuff your way so you'll buy it, right? Why aren't we doing that with a sales rep? You're seeing all his signals because he's acting on his phone, he's taking phone calls, he's holding meetings, he's following the playbook, all the information from the enterprise is coming through there. It's watching how he sells. And if you start tracking those signals, is he truly a hunter? Is he truly a farmer? Does he understand the game plan? Does he understand your product suite? There's apps out there that do this, right? But there's more than that, right? Now, if you start tying it, the carrot and stick, like I said earlier, right, and the pay for performance, you start tying into some flexible models where you can start aligning certain pieces of that. Companies, they wrestle with and they spend a lot of money. Do we need to do a mid-year quota change? Well, if you got AI tracking this, you can individually start aligning quotas on a regular basis. You're not doing this big lift because you screwed up your go-to-market plan for one region for part of the year, right? Now you're acting against, is the quota appropriate? It'll tell you quicker if the territory is appropriate, your coverage model's set up correctly. And again, it depends on the industry. You're going to see a lot of differences there on the verticals and all that and what you're handling, but it's going to operate in real time and give you a lot more signals. So when the sales manager is looking at his ranking report and sees his top players and his bottom players, the AI can start telling you, why are my bottom players not acting correctly? Now, again, this gets back to the model of the A, B, and C reps. The A reps know your business. It's just a matter of then tweaking a little bit they need to do. They're off to the races. How do you turn your B reps into A reps? How do you fail faster with your C reps because you don't want to have a problem in place? Let the AI take on a lot of that lift for you, right? And start finding the signals. What makes the A rep successful? Well, if it's looking at the right signals, it can tell you they're doing these 22 items every single time on this type of cell, whether it's enterprise, mid-market, or whatever, right? Take those signals, start seeing are your B reps and C reps doing that. Let the AI start giving enhancements around. Maybe they just need some training or some enablement, right? Maybe they just need some coaching. Maybe they're not vertical specialists in that one industry. When we partner them up with somebody, let it start sending back the signals of why that's not selling correctly. If it's working in other places, okay, it's working. How do we get it working across our entire product suite, across our entire territory? Again, whether it's regional or not, let the AI be your sidekick to start finding those options for you. That's what we're trying to get to, right? Finding the things we know it's going on, but we don't necessarily have enough data to tell us how to be effective. Well, the data is sitting there. You just can't act on it quick enough, right? Again, their job is to sell, not to do the back end. How's all this coming up? Well, the AI can be your assistant for that, right? Why don't we have these agentic apps for SPM that are driving, behavioral driving agentic apps for sales behavior? That's what we're getting to. I think in 10 years, you're going to see a ton of apps where a large chunk of what we do in the SPM space right now is done on that mobile device, whether it's still a phone or it's something else, with these micro AIs driving that behavior. And I'm just so excited to be at the forefront of that right now.
Yeah. That's awesome. So super helpful. So I guess if I'm going to kind of to deduce that, it's a lot of what you're suggesting is that because we have so much of this data, even though maybe the data could be coming from the different processes, it does
Mm-hmm.
come back to the SPM single source of truth. And being able to surface that or detect certain capabilities or certain data points, it enables practitioners to be a bit more on that front foot. So be a bit
Yeah.
more proactive about
Yeah.
decisions that they're making versus maybe kind of taking a little bit more of a reactive perspective where we got to see the data. Maybe it's surfacing it a bit quicker.
That's totally it. Because if you think about the maturity curve within any space, again, specifically SPM, you go through the descriptive phase, it's what happened, you act on what happened, right? You get the predictive phase, you act on what will happen. You get into the prescriptive phase, what should be doing next, right? The
Mm,
problem is there's so much data now, and that's one of the problems a lot of so many of these apps that the sales reps are dealing with. They're overburned at times. You're paying them to sell, but you've got so many of these automated apps out there telling them what they need to do, but not maybe coordinating it all. The
mm,
AI can start doing that because nobody can look at all the data. They just can't do it. But if you let the AI be that middle layer and start, cutting through the chaff and everything, it can start bringing out the points you need to make you more successful. And I say you, it starts learning your behavior, how you act. It's going to know what will work for you or not. That's exactly what all these social media companies are doing, right? We're just applying it to a different domain now. They're making us go out there and buy things we don't need because they're in our face 24/7. We should be doing the same thing with the sales reps.
yeah. So, so super helpful, and I appreciate your kind of background there. I think this concept of proactive versus reactive, I think is been starting to
Yeah,
come up much more and
a
more
lot.
frequently.
Yeah,
I want to maybe just bring it back to, because we only have a few minutes left,
sure.
bring it back to the sales planning process, and maybe
Okay.
we can double click in on a specific area where, if I'm a practitioner and I'm part of a sales planning team, or I'm going
Yep.
to be leading the sales planning process, how should I be thinking about, and I feel maybe good about my data, maybe I feel like I have a pretty good single source of truth. How should I be thinking about utilizing AI or utilizing kind of any data or analytics
Mhm.
capability to help me accelerate, my timeline in the planning process? As you alluded to, you're working with companies
Yeah.
that are actually accelerating that process. Maybe give them a little bit of background on what is the role that AI data analytics capabilities can play for them to accelerate that process.
Yeah, it's AI and just analytics in general. But if you think about what's been going on, right? We had the cloud revolution. We've all been through that. Well, now it's the unified performance clouds, right? We're SPM, so that's one side of it. But you've got the unified on the effectiveness folks and the enablement folks and the CRM folks. We're all starting to see that to come together. I'm not going to choose a technology or a vendor. I mean, obviously, Xactly for comp, but some of the other ones that, the Workdays of the world, the Salesforces of the world, they're all doing these unified performance clouds. That's part of it. A lot of companies are still getting up to speed on that, right? I've got several legacy ones right now that have still just come off a mainframe. So not everybody has made the transition, but we're getting there. And it depends on your vertical. So that's one, the unified piece. Real-time comp tracking. Why aren't we having the AI piece specifically just passively looking at every data that comes through. Again, I talked about an SPM data hub. We live and breathe sales transactions that come through. Just let it look at the data, if nothing else. You may not act right away. You need to start building up your area of expertise around certain things that it's looking at. Just let it start looking passively at a lot of these capabilities and what it's seeing. Let it start drawing some conclusions with human in the loop, because we still know a lot of things as well, right? So get that together. Governance. We haven't talked about governance. I know we're talking sales planning, but let's be honest. A lot of what we deal with is companies that may have a governance or don't, and the ones that do don't enforce it. There's no reason not to let AI start driving all the governance and just telling you. Now, whether you choose to act on it, whole different discussion. But a lot of it is things that you're dealing with in the sales planning cycle and the incentive comp cycle and the sales insight cycle is you have governance in place, you don't enforce it, and then you wonder why at the end of the year you have all these issues that you're dealing with. Well, if you enforced it, you put those in place so you don't have the issues. Let the AI start doing it. So, now you got maybe, not just the person that's always screaming about why aren't we enforcing it. Now you've got the AI telling you, you should really be enforcing this if you did that, because not only will it tell you should enforce it, it'll tell you, here's the outcome you would have had if you had enforced it. So now you've got ammunition to go back to, folks, we got to change some things here. And then I'll back to the other one again, just with the sales planning, AI attached to that and all the analytics and everything. If you put AI into the loop of everything you're building, again, get back to what is sales planning, job roles, pay mixes, leveling, territories, quotas, all those different pieces. And you have it modeling all those and analyzing all those, getting down to personalized incentives and figuring out what spiffs are going to be right for the right time of year. And again, it's just back to that proactive story, getting ahead of everything. Again, there's not enough time in the day maybe to act on everything, but if you have the knowledge, when you get into that sales planning cycle for the next year, and then you bring all this data to it, it's going to make it go that much easier. And again, I'm not saying you're going to implement all this overnight. I get it, right? We're going through kind of a renaissance right now, but it's baby steps. Maybe just work with quotas this year. And then maybe you're working with territories next year. And then maybe, MDM model got out of sync. We got to, bring in and work on that. Do all the little pieces and get to that point, right? Depends on the size of the entity. Again, the space that you're in, the vertical, all that. But that's what we're trying to accomplish. We're not trying to just, brute force it all at once. Baby steps, get it in there. 10 years from now, we're all going to be sitting pretty. And it's like the self-driving cars, right? Everyone's scared right now, but 100 years from now, when they're all self-driving, we shouldn't have any accidents. I mean, that's the big analogy right there. So,
Hey, Todd, wide-ranging topics, and of course, we naturally hit on self-driving cars. So that just really brings us all the way around with all the different kind of topics that we're bringing about
sure.
today. I'm again really, really appreciate your time and support on this. I'm going to finish with one last question that I think is super, super important, and what I like to ask our guests, and it's maybe one or two specific trends that you think that our audience would be keen to know about. So what are the things that we talked a lot about AI
Mhm.
and SPM and kind of the applications of AI. What are some of the predictions that you have, or maybe some emerging trends that you're seeing that you think would be valuable for the audience here today to hear about?
Several. Let me see order here. I'm going to reiterate a couple of them. I'm seeing a lot more clients. And again, if you think about the history of the SPM space, again, I've been doing this since the 90s, before it was even called SPM. So I've seen the maturity as we've gone through. So it took us a strong 10 to 15 years where we got enough clients using ICM, right? The operational aspects, Xactly and Cent and all the other players out there, operationalizing and building these processes around. We just want to pay effectively. Forget all the other stuff on sales planning. We want to pay effectively. But now we've got, taught people talking ICM and have matured that. What does that mean? I'm doing much more strategy consulting upstream on the sales planning side, right? Because we've got the mature operational piece. So we know once we get sales planning correct, it'll flow into a piece that will pay people correctly, right? So we did the bait and tackle on the ICM side, but now the strategic piece, which is the fun piece, is all these different pieces on sales planning, getting that aligned. And now it's just being smart about it. You need to be self-aware. What is my issue I'm dealing with within the enterprise? Is it quotas is really my issue? Is it territories? Is it just I'm not aligned on my roles? Too many hunters, too many farmers. Have I really thought through how we're selling, right? The go-to-market playbook. And a bigger one I'd love to see more of, and we're not seeing enough trends in, they come in with a sales strategy, but I've seen so many clients, the sales strategy is not aligned to corporate strategy. And I'm not trying to call anybody out, but if you read the any of the reports they put out for financials, you'll see what the corporate side of it says. But then if you're operating on the sales side, you go, well, wait a minute, they just said X, but our go-to-market isn't driving that. So I'd love to see more emphasis on bringing those two together, because once you get those two in sync, obviously, then it drives everything else downstream. But the trends I'm seeing a ton more with intelligent quotas. A lot more people are, it's not just traditional top-down, we're going to throw a number out there and parse it out. They're being much more smart in the alignment of the quotas. A lot more talks on not just territories. The problem is too many people talk about just the territories, but they're not talking about the coverage model. So they have a really strong territory optimization team. They don't have a really good coverage team, and they don't know how to differentiate between the two. Now, the problem with having strong coverage is, did you set up the roles correctly to align to your coverage model, right? So they're saying they're doing sales planning, but they're only doing parts of the sales planning. So you really need to be looking at all the parts, right? Again, the people part, the roles and pay mixes, the mechanics part, which is the comp plan design, and then the mobilization part, which is the territories and the quotas and all that. Getting them all aligned. Again, not just doing one of them, but doing all of them. And I get it. Some of these companies just don't have a big organization for that. They're going to get to it. Choose the ones that you can get to at this time. But just like I said with AI, it's the baby steps, right? Get one of them optimized, get it working, get the trust back, then get the next one. And I can't say which order you do it in, right? Because every company is going to be different based on what they're selling, how they're selling, who their competition is. But I love the fact that we're talking sales planning on a regular basis. And there's a lot of firms out there talking sales planning. It's not just a secondary thought because we were doing ICM for so many years. I mean, we're at a renaissance right now. We're seeing really cool things happening in the sales planning space, and just excited to be a part of it, and getting the AI to start enhancing that.
Awesome. Well, Todd, super, super helpful, and like really appreciate all of the different information tidbits. I mean, again, feel like we could have this conversation for
Oh,
like
yeah.
4 hours, and we're just barely scratching the surface. But really want to appreciate, want to thank you and really appreciate your time today, sharing your wisdom and insights into a wide range of topics and your experience. I'll just kind of finish it here. Thank you so much. We're right at time. If anybody has any additional questions, or if you want to connect with Todd on LinkedIn, we can drop that in the chat as well. And of course, at Xactly, we feel very strongly about our unified platform that can deliver on a lot of the stuff that Todd had mentioned earlier today. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, feel free to contact us in the link that we're providing here below. With that, thank you again, Todd. It was a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And thank you so much for everybody else that joined. And we look forward to speaking with you again soon. And I guess I have to finish with a Go Broncos, right, Todd? We got
Go
to
Broncos.
Go
Thanks, Will. And
Broncos.
thanks for
All
the
right.
folks at Exactly. Love it.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice day.
All right. Bye.